The snow was falling quietly. The faceless man stared silently at the dark openings of the windows. Again, she is not at home. Again, he is waiting. He's waiting for her to come back. Turn on the light in the bedroom. She doesn't have curtains, so you can see everything in the palm of your hand. He's not some kind of preoccupied maniac. He just wants to see her silhouette, even for a moment. He stands there until she turns off the light and gets into bed. Then he goes to his room too. And so it is every day. He sees her, but she doesn't see him. He watches her life, knows what she eats, what cosmetics and perfumes she likes, even when she has critical days. He knows everything about her. She's still in the dark, but they will meet soon. Asterisk, asterisk. Helen came out of the entrance and shivered. The frost was still strong in the morning. Snow crunched underfoot. Birds sang in my soul. Finally, her life, after a series of troubles, settled down, calmed down. She moved into this house for a little over 6 months and was also depressed after a difficult breakup with her husband. With the money after the divorce, Helen bought this apartment for herself in a quiet residential area of the city. The area was strange. After 7 in the evening, there was no one on the streets, as if the residents were afraid of someone, but she had not heard about any crime. For the first few months, she lived on autopilot, not noticing anything around her. Gradually, she got out of her condition and began to live anew. And that's when she noticed that she sometimes had a feeling of someone else's presence. It's like she's being watched. The feeling was not pleasant and scared her. Somehow she noticed a man who was standing in front of her entrance and seemed to be waiting for someone, watching. Dressed in black jeans and a black hoodie, he completely blended into the evening twilight. Helen accidentally noticed him, but she didn't see his face. Since that evening, she had seen him often, even as it seemed that he was watching her windows. She still hasn't bothered to buy curtains for the windows. Helen stopped noticing him. Stands and stands. You never know who is waiting for. And soon, the woman noticed oddities in her apartment. After watching for a couple of days, she was definitely convinced that someone else was in the apartment in her absence. The cosmetics in the bathroom are not like that. Her mug is turned with the handle in the other direction, and it was as if someone was lying on the bed. All these little things can be overlooked, but Helen was a pedant by nature, and living alone, she noticed everything. In addition, she began to go to a psychologist, and she had a task to notice the little things. It was as part of her therapy during treatment. She wrote a statement to the police, which was treated rather indifferently, saying that nothing was missing. The lock was not broken. Go in peace. Discouraged by the police's behavior, Helen went home. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. He saw her again. She's worried about something. Started taking medications, antidepressants. He must help her and save her. After all, he loves her. She is his whole world, his life. It's time for her to open up. That evening, she came back late again. He was nervous standing outside. A taxi pulled up. She got out and entered the entrance. He went back to his room. Helen fell asleep curled up on the couch. In her sleep, she heard soft footsteps. Someone was in the apartment. She woke up and listened, continuing to pretend to be asleep. The air stirred slightly, and a draft blew in. Someone ran a hand through her hair. "You're not sleeping, you're just pretending." A dark silhouette spoke. The voice is not familiar. Helen's heart slowed down from fear, and every beat echoed in her ears. Suddenly, she smelled a pungent odor from the cloth he had applied to her face. The woman tried to fight back, but the forces were not equal. She inhaled the smell and passed out. "Here we are, kid," the man muttered. She came to her senses in the morning. It's still dark outside, but the time creeps up to 7 in the morning. She was lying on the bed, her hands tied to the headboard, her legs free. She was sick from the drug that had put her to sleep. Helen's voice was lost in horror. She did not understand what this man wanted. "I've been watching you, guarding you. I know you didn't notice, but that's my role. I was an invisible protector, a guardian angel. We will always be together." The man muttered, his eyes glittering, looking unhealthy. "Who are you?" "Let me go. I won't tell anyone anything." He just laughed hoarsely. "We will always be together." The next 24 hours turned into torture for Helen. The fear did not let go for a second. The man looked insane and kept saying how good it would be for them together. The woman's arms were numb and her back ached. Somehow she persuaded him to take her to the shower. He believed her. She took a shower, changed into a bathrobe, came out of the bathroom, and when he turned away for a second, she hit him with a lamp. After all, this is her apartment, and she knows where and what is standing. There was a table lamp on a small table in the hallway, as the overhead light was not working. The lamp, made of glass, heavy, shattered into many pieces. The man fell without making a sound. Helen rushed to the door, glad she hadn't changed the lock. She had the simplest one. As she was in a bathrobe, she ran outside, although she tried to knock on the neighbors' doors, but no one answered. Running out into the street, Helen slipped barefoot on the ice and flew right under the wheels of a car. The driver quickly got his bearings and stopped, helped her up, and called the police. Helen was wrapped up in her coat and couldn't keep warm. She was shaking, either from the cold or from fear. She saw him being led out of her apartment in handcuffs. Then experts worked there, covered everything with powder, took fingerprints and other materials for examination. All this time she was sitting in the police car and trying to calm down. It turned out badly. She was taken to a hotel for the night, and in the morning a meeting with the investigator was scheduled. "Who is he?" Helen asked, sitting in the investigator's office. "Kevin, 40 years old, has not been involved, is not officially working at the moment. In general, he is a specialist in the IT field. He earned good money. 6 months ago, he resigned of his own accord. He lived alone. His mother lived separately. She has not been contacted yet," the man was telling me. "As for me, he's a complete nutcase." I understood that. "He visited your apartment regularly. There were cameras in the living room and bedroom, and several flash drives with recordings in his apartment. And something else interesting, a diary in which he wrote everything in great detail. I can't give it to you to read, and I don't think you want to either. He will be sent for a psychiatric examination, and then it will be seen. I hope they won't let him out." "Why me?" "Not, of course, at least in the coming years." The investigator lit a cigarette and silently rearranged coffee mugs and papers, as if gathering his thoughts. "He's crazy. He saw you on the bus when you first moved in. You either smiled at him or said something, but something clicked in his sick head. He was just obsessed with you, and you weren't paying attention. He stood at the entrance every evening, even changed his apartment, or rather rented it right in front of your windows. He knew everything about you. He was in the apartment, slept on the bed, ate from your dishes, smelled your clothes. Your apartment is full of his fingerprints and DNA. There are a lot of photos of you in his apartment, including when you were sleeping." At the last words, the woman shuddered. "How did he get to me?" "I didn't notice the break-in at first," Helen replied softly. "As I understand it, he entered through the roof. Your house and his are connected by a common roof. Is the house how it stands?" With the letter P, having entered the attic at his entrance, he calmly walked to your entrance, went down and entered. "I'm sorry, but your lock is simple. Change it just in case." There is a lot of description in the diary of what will happen when you are together, how he is preparing for the meeting. Most of the time, the recordings look like nonsense, and some of them are complete nonsense. For example, he became interested in magic, found old books and studied. There he found a love spell. Well, they say if you suddenly reject it, you will still be together. Like magic works wonders. That's how it is. The man paused and spoke again. "I even feel a little sorry for him. He wrote so confidently about your imminent love and the power of this spell because he believed in all this. That's probably why he went completely nuts that night. Magic doesn't exist. It's just old wives' tales to scare children and suggestible adults, Helen said firmly. He was ill. We'll find out soon. That was the end of the meeting. After a while, the same investigator called Helen again. Kevin was in a mental health clinic being treated by a court verdict. She came reluctantly. She just didn't want to go through it all again. She's had enough of nightmares. Good afternoon. Have a seat. Perhaps I will tell you some good news. As far as I know, he was sent for compulsory treatment. Yes, that's right. It died. How? We overlooked it. I was able to hang myself in the shower with a towel. Although he behaved quietly and did not commit suicide attempts, on the contrary, he aspired to freedom. His mother was never found. Perhaps he had a hand in it. A natural end. Maybe this is his freedom. I hope he calms down now. A couple of days later, Helen had a nightmare. It's as if he, the watcher, comes into her bedroom. He sits down on the bed and looks at her, and then his hands reached for her neck, becoming disproportionately long. I woke up screaming. Helen visited the church, ordered a prayer service for the repose of the soul, even though he is suicidal. It didn't help. Kevin's spirit only got angrier. He tried to strangle her in her sleep, and when she looked in the mirror in the morning, she couldn't hold back her scream. There were stains on the neck from the hands of the deceased. Helen was scared to death. She was afraid to fall asleep. Several sleepless nights began to affect not only her health, but also her psyche. On another visit to the doctor, instead of being referred for an examination, Helen received a note with the address and phone number. The doctor explained that traditional medicine would not help here. The village was half an hour's drive from the city, and Helen went to the witch the same day. She was exhausted both mentally and physically, ready for almost anything, just to live in peace again. The witch turned out to be an ordinary-looking woman. Gwen lived in her house. A huge shaggy dog roamed in the yard, and a fat red cat sat on the porch. The picture warmed Helen's heart. You and the deceased have something in common. This thread keeps him here. He won't rest until he's got you in the grave. Find that thing at home. It probably doesn't catch your eye, and you don't really notice it. You'll recognize her right away. The dead man made a deadly spell on you, and with tricky locks, it will not work to bypass or open them. Even though you say he's hardly versed in witchcraft, the cards and runes show exactly magic. Moreover, the magic is strong and dark. Gwen was saying in a slightly tired voice. Helen immediately told her the whole story. The witch looked at it on the maps and poured wax, even looked at the runes to make sure. Everything was confirmed. A spell, and even a strong and hidden one. Only the death of the one who performed the ceremony gave a small chance to remove the spell and ward off the deceased. I'll go with you. You can hardly do it alone. How long has it been since his death? Gwen asked. About a month. And what? 40 days are coming soon, which means he has little time. Why is he doing this to me? During his lifetime he tormented, and after death he does not let go. I don't know. I don't have an answer to your question. On the last bus, the women arrived in the city and went to Helen. Gwen explained to Helen that she would summon Kevin's spirit to the world of the living because he could not be defeated in a dream. A dream is a boundary between worlds, thin and vulnerable. The easiest way for a knowledgeable person to destroy another is in a dream. Sleep makes a person vulnerable on a mental level, especially from 1 to 3 in the morning. It's a dangerous time when the gates between the worlds are open, Gwen said, preparing for the ceremony. And Helen was looking for that very thing. The thing turned out to be a simple hairpin. Helen didn't use invisible hairpins, so she immediately understood where they came from. Since moving in, she has not looked into the box with hair ornaments. After the divorce, she cut her hair short. Love pins could have been in this box for a long time. Before the ritual, she fumigated the room with herbs, lit candles, prepared salt and water. As soon as they uttered the spell, the witch and Helen felt something change. Despite the red-hot batteries, It became cold, as if they were in the cold. The witch had prepared a trap for the ghost in advance, and he got caught. Helen couldn't remember what happened during the scolding and the ritual without a shudder. Gwen was able to remove the spell, though with the help of Kevin's spirit. His soul was freed and calmed down. Helen was greatly relieved. No spell justifies itself. In almost 98% of cases, love spells end badly. A person who is bewitched, that is, his will and feelings are suppressed, quickly dies or goes crazy. Someone will be lucky and he will live a normal life, and someone will die suddenly, and no one will ever know about the love spell. Both suffer, and the one who enchants and the victim. In very rare cases, the very 2%, when everything coincides and they are destined for each other. But this is a rarity. Gwen was saying it was still dark outside the window, even though it was almost 8 o'clock in the morning. Later they went to the cemetery and to the church. Gwen stayed 2 more days at Helen's, cleaned the apartment, and at home she was going to continue shooting the negative from Helen's photo. After finishing her business, Helen escorted the witch to the bus. During these days, the women became friends. This story has greatly influenced Helen and her relationships with others. Now she couldn't trust at all, and she tried to turn the apartment into a fortress. She did not get married again. There were affairs, but the fear turned out to be stronger. Sometimes, Helen would wake up at night and feel the presence of the otherworldly.